What's up, everybody? It's your favorite master of magnetism's favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the Revoltech Magneto. He does have a cape, he doesn't have it with him because we're going to talk about it when we talk about accessories. It's kind of involved enough where I feel like it deserved its own little place. So this is on loan to me from Michael E. Once again, he sent me a ton of stuff, and I'm working my way through it. So I don't want to take too much time because there's a lot to talk about with this figure, so I want to get to these accessories as quickly as possible. So he comes with two fist hands, left and right, to go with the two kind of posing hands that you saw in the opening footage. He comes with two magnet effects. They're translucent plastic. They have a white paint and a like purple electric sort of effect on them. I think most people have seen this stuff online, but they are magnetized, so that's a thing. He comes with an alternate face, and the cool thing about this is I tried to make him go cross-eyed. It comes with a little tool that you can use to adjust the eyes in the back so that you can adjust the direction that they look. And that's a nice touch, but the super nice thing about it, and I'm gonna see if I can pull it off, is if you get the eyes kind of all the way out of the eyelid space, then you can have it like with the classic white eye look from like the 90s art, from whether it be Jim Lee or Willis Portacio, Mark Silvestri, like that rarely drew kind of the eyeballs. Which is a nice touch and something very cool to have as a... At first I was like, man, like making a figure this size have the ability to look different ways is kind of like, it's a bit much. But the ability to have them with the eyeballs or with like the white eye look, I think that's awesome and worth it. Hair, I can't even... It's at least dry brushed. It might also be washed from a gray plastic with a white dry brush. Face has shading throughout, decent enough sculpt, and you know, the mouth, the teeth, and the teeth themselves aren't sculpted. Well, no, they might subtly be actually, at least on this side. And then there's a wash inside the ears as well for the extra bit of shading. So all in all, pretty nice. He comes with the display base and some extra joints and stuff. The C-clip for the you know, to put on here as well as an adapter. We've looked at these before with previous Revoltech releases, so we're not going to open up the package in order to do so here, as it doesn't belong to us. And then lastly, he comes with these cape pieces. So basic Revoltech joints that plug in. They're like ratcheted ball hinges that swivel at the where they plug in and at the cape itself. You have one here, and then a second one here. You know, the trick with this is to make it look like there's no gaps in the cape. That is going to be tricky to do, but not totally impossible. This middle piece has one ratcheted ball hinge, and then this one is the kind of the opposite of the first. And after we look at the figure, we'll plug this in and take a look at how we can get it to work. So let's talk about them. Now, these figures, we have to first say, first and foremost, they are for super dynamic poses. They're not meant for the A stance. The aesthetic of them is always going to be affected by their general purpose. Like this knows that it's not trying to look good in an A stance. This knows that the joints are going to look wonky. It's making decisions based on the fact that it thinks that you, the consumer, will be putting him in some sort of a pose where it makes sense ultimately in the end. And they've gotten gradually better at making them look presentable in an A stance. You know, if you look at the Deadpool, it was kind of the worst example, you know, but the Wolverine, it looks like the Captain America, and this one all work a bit better. So let's take a look. We'll take the head off. We have a typical ball hinge that swivels at the top and bottom from the head into the neck, and then inside from the neck into the chest, it feels like a ball joint. I could be wrong about that, but it feels like it. The red body has shading throughout, and the purple is a metallic purple. And that's pretty much everything to talk about painting-wise, but it is important to note that it's basically painted head to toe. Obviously, the red is just shaded, but there's paint applied to that red, so I'm giving them credit. And it has a collar piece here to cover down. But let's see if I can't. All right, so for the head itself, the face is painted and shaded. The eyes are done. You can adjust the eyes just like the other one. And it has the purple metallic around the trim of the helmet. I will say the sculpt of the symbol on the helmet is a little dull. Probably could have stood out a bit more. Articulation wise, using all the joints, you can get the head down to there, up to there, confused dog look, swivel, etc. These cape pieces, now they're on a double ball peg. So the ball peg goes into the base of the cape here and then out to the shoulder piece. So you can swivel at both ends and get it around. It's really just to cover down on the joints. Like, I think the cape is a tricky thing to pull off, especially with a figure that's this articulated. So I think that it was actually a smart move. It just is a little cumbersome and off-putting at first. We'll look at it more once we get the cape on. So the shoulders, the same type of joints that we've been seeing, double ratcheted ball hinges connected to 2 pegs that swivel at both ends. Utilizing both, you get the arm all the way up to there, down to there, in front of the chest, pretty much all the way across, back behind. If I can get this one to swivel. See, I'm trying to get the first ball hinge, and that's looking a little rough, so I'm not going to manipulate that. Let's see if I can get it on this end. Yeah, I'm not going to mess with it too much, but you should be able to get it a fair bit behind as well. You can drop them down, cover down on the joint, or push them up to get the extreme look. You have the option. Now for the elbow ball hinge that swivels both at the forearm and the bicep, so that's where you'll get your bicep swivel. And then your wrist, we'll take that off. Ball hinge swivels at the forearm and at the hand. So that'll get you in, out. Yeah, this is a little off center. There you go. So that'll get you up, up, down, or if you swivel, in, out. No problems. Same for the other side. Now for the chest, I am going to guess that it is a large ball hinge that swivels at the top and bottom. Let me see if I can't see. It looks like it to me. The bottom one pegs in there is another ball hinge ratcheted that pegs into the lower abdomen. So using both, you can get him almost bent all the way over, fair amount back. You can get him turned off to the side with the swivel, but he doesn't do like, oh, I guess he does do the teapot a little bit on the upper ball joint. So works pretty well. The legs. Now this is where they tried to cover up some of the aesthetic. The britches is basically, oddly enough, just a swivel like an old school figure. And then you have another swivel off angle, off center at the first joint, which gives you the thigh swivel and the movement out. But you don't get a real significant outward movement. It's just the general sculpt can get you far out, so to speak, from maneuvering it around, which is interesting. I'm not sure if it was the right choice, but you know what? I'm not sure it was the wrong choice either. Front and back, you get to there. The knee is on a ball hinge, swivels at the top and bottom, but the nice thing is it has an additional ball hinge that pegs into the actual knee cap, which can cover down on the joint. I love stuff like that. It's just a little extra consideration. Big fan. So you get the swivel here at the calf as well if you're interested in such things. Ball hinge just pegs into the calf and into the foot. This joint is a little loose here. Getting you an ankle tilt up to there, or down to there, up to there, ankle rocker, and then a toe hinge. So all in all, the only thing I'm worried about is how the legs are going to work. But, like, if you think about Magneto, he's not really like a super leg articulated character. It's not like he's doing Spider-Man poses most often than not. Maybe it's like one leg up, or there's a little bit more elegance to how he kind of moves around. So like, while it does, I guess, kind of suck that you don't have the option, I can't say I'm entirely mad at it, because at the end of the day, it kind of makes sense for the character. So there he is from the back without the cape. And now we'll take a look at the cape. So I got 2 pieces kind of stuck in, but as you can see, they're not really in there all that well. This one may be better than the other. The problem is that it might be the paint. It's too tight. It's too tight to really get them in. It's a bummer. So I've heard scuttlebutt of this issue. I expected this to be an issue because I'd heard so many people mention it. And everyone says, and I mean everyone, you heat it up, it should go in just fine, you won't have any problems. And I am going to go out on a limb and say that's probably true. But it doesn't excuse the poor performance. Apologies don't pardon poor performance. And that's what I kind of feel like this ends up being. Especially with how much you kind of have to work and pull at this in order to pull off the sculpt. It's definitely going to pop these pegs out as I'm going to manipulate it. Now I'm going to do the best I can when I show off the final thoughts. But that is a huge bummer and a huge oversight and something that should have been fixed before release. There he is next to Wolverine, and I think they look good together. No skit today because I'm pretty upset over this cape situation. So instead, I'll be doing one of my famous impressions, which is of Colossus from the 90s X-Men video game, since this is kind of inspired by a video game as well. Are you ready? If you were a kid that played this game in the arcade, you know it was awesome, you know how it felt to play it, and I do a pretty good impression of Colossus. Are you ready? Here we go. Final thoughts wise, my biggest issue is the cape. Let's see if that'll... There he is holding a thumbtack. My biggest issue is the cape. Like, it's not fun. It's not fun to mess with because it's hard to get it in. Now, I'm sure if you heat it up and put it in, you'll be fine, but I shouldn't have to do that. Like, I draw the line and stuff like that. Like, if I gotta go out of my way to make some $50 toy work, that's not acceptable to me. I appreciate that they try to make the cape extremely articulated. That being said, I end up paying the price for it when I'm trying to make it look good. I'm not sure what the better option would have been, but I'm not sure that I'm personally entirely happy with how it turned out. I also wish there was a bit more elegance to the articulation of the hips. They don't quite work well enough for me. It's not to say that they're bad, they're fine, but if I had to point out another thing that I had a slight issue with, that would definitely be one. There is some good stuff though too though. The paint is great. The articulation for the most part works across the board without issue. The accessories are all cool, appropriate, interchangeable, with the exception of the cape of course. And I think they're getting better and better at hiding the sculpt issues with the hyper articulation. So do I recommend it? The answer is yes, but let me tell you why. I think that once you heat up these cape pieces and get them stuck in for good, you can have a really great display piece for Magneto for this line. That being said, I can't say this is a great release because it does require work on your end in order to fix their mistakes, which to me is always a strike against. But thanks for Mike for letting me take a look at it, and thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. Till next time, take care.